Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we'll talk about application software. So in previous week, we talked about what is computer in general, that's introduction. And we talked about how the hardware looked like, and then talked about the software and Windows operating system. So that made up 4 weeks of coverage. Now that today, at the 5th week, we're going to talk about application software. So in fact, learning a computer or familiarizing computer is more or less familiarizing with certain types of application software. That's where all the work is done. Okay, so let's go ahead with today's agenda. So first of all, even if I covered that one before, but just a little bit about comparison of the application software with the system software. Then there are many categories, actually thousands and thousands of different types of the application software, as many as the number of applications. There are different type of application software. That's what the application software is all about. As you know, nowadays almost every field, not a single field is immune from the usage of a computer. And the usage of a computer means the software part of application software. But as we have limited time, also that it is impossible to cover even the small portion of those categories all in the whole scale. So rather, just a few important the categories will be covered. That's business productivity software. Even if it says business, you folks listening to this lecture are business major. That's why I'm going to focus on a little bit on the business. But the productivity, that is the typical software we are using all the time, like a Word, Excel, PowerPoint, database, things like that. So that is most commonly used and most universally used software. Almost everybody uses it. Then there's something to do with the graphics and the multimedia related software. Again, I cannot cover everything, so more of an image related software. I'll just talk about that. And then there's a business related software. So this is our textbook, that chapter the 6 of our textbook talks about the different categories, but I would rather they added this business related software unit. So what kind of programs are there to be benefited for your future usage as a business major, a business specialist in doing your job. Then of course something to do learning things, so educational application software we'll be talking about. Also, if you remember the 3rd week the lecture, then I talked about this open source software, or called open source initiative. And there are a whole bunch of the software unit called open source software, OSS, or better yet, you put F in the front, free and open source software. So I'm going to talk about this one just a little bit more, and hopefully that you'll be benefited by those the FAST units and some conclusion. So let's get started. So first of all, that we talked about that there's a relationship between application and the system software, and we said high level versus low level. High level means to the level of human beings. That's high. And the low level means the level of hardware. That's a machine or material, tools. So they cannot be any match to human beings, isn't it? So anyway, so low level and high level in here. So in a sense that there's a hardware And then we have the system software. That's the things like operating system and other utility and programming languages and the device drivers. That again, that the system software is the type of software making our access to this hardware that looks really mysterious or just dumb. This machine accessible by this intelligent human beings easier, efficient, and quickly learn how to use. So that is the idea. So application is actually what is productive. What we want to do something. We want to do something means that I want to balance my ledger, or I want to do prediction for my business, or I want to compose music using computer, or I want to write a letter for my employment and the future report they're using my computer. In that case, that by using certain software, you get your work done. You have some task, and that task is done. So that gives you some productivity. So again, that what human beings are more or less interfacing a lot is application software, and underneath of that, then system software is there. Of course, you may say, oh, I'm using some features of the operating system, like using Windows file managers and the process managers, disk managers. Yes, true. So there's some maintenance work you may do by user connected to system software, but that is not much of productive. It's more of housekeeping. You are cleaning house, or you are doing some kind of arranging your house. That's all there it is. And the actual work of composing the music, or writing some poem or a novel, or the balancing your book for the finance, those things are done by application software. So that I cannot emphasize too much about the importance and complexity of application software. Okay, so let's go to the next one. So we say system software had the operating system, and then programming languages, and then some utilities. I'm saying this one I already told you, and hopefully someday you will learn those programming languages, at least one. If you learn one programming language, then learning second one, third one is pretty easy. In a way, doesn't mean that it's real easy, but it's much doable. So throughout my career, I would say I at least learned the 20 or 30 different kind of languages because of the need, and sometimes out of curiosity, sometimes because the new language is more convenient and adequate for certain application. So the determination of what type of the language to use is quite a bit depending on the job or your target of the work. So I recommend the language called the Python. That is pretty easy, but also pretty much powerful and very useful. Okay, anyway, so these are the system software. Thing is, when you are writing, you are not going to write any application software yourself unless someday that you go to that field. You will be just a user. But if you create any application software, for example, I'm gonna write some application like predicting stock markets and some kind of the profit analysis, anything like that. So I'll write it. You will gonna use this programming language unless you are using an application software somebody already created for you or for somebody. So it is very important. And also, I said there are thousands and thousands of different type of the application software, different type of application. So definitely music composing application or the file for the image or video will be quite different from your Word or Excel type of the files, the file that contains all those information. So I said when we're talking about the third day of software, is that this extension after something all the name and after dot and something, this one tells you what kind of or what sort of the application this one gonna be used. So TXT, just the name says it's text. So it's a friend's address, whatever that is, then this is text file. If it says .xls, then If you got some experience, that's Excel. Then DOC, then yeah, I know that DOC is something to do with documentation, and actually it's a Microsoft Word file. So there are many other extensions that the Microsoft Word will use, but the DOC is the most common one. Of course, you may see a lot of them with the X there. That's since the Office Suite 2000 later, those things got an X at the end. That's extended what it means. So there are a whole bunch of the extension that determines the type of application. And of course, don't get me wrong, that the system software also has some, as long as it's a file, we need some kind of extension. By the way, I think I told you, but file is the kind of a named unit of stored information. So it is much like a record. When you're a music fan, then you can play your music out of all the days of the those vinyl, the RPM, the disc or CD or tape, or what else there be the old days. There was some other tools. So depending on what kind of the medium you have with, that is a tape, then you need the tape player. You are not going to use that into CD player. If you got a CD, then it will be used for the CD player. Just like that. So the application software is more like that CD player or tape player. And those file is actually more like the tape and the CD. Of course, one CD player you have, then you can use any kind of a music, any kind of a story, any kind of a movie to play on. So you can have as many as you can imagine the different type of different unit of the files, but the type of the file determined by those extensions. That's a very important thing. So the system knows it automatically, say, this is something to do with say .au, that is an audio, AU, like that, audio. So it says, this is something to do with the sound player. So it will automatically link it. It's actually the play by engaging this file into that software to run. So it's still the analogy of playing the record or CD or tape on tape player or CD player or record player. That's a really valid comparison here. Okay, so that's the files. So what kind of extension is important, and I'm going to say that on more in the later lectures. Then so type of the application software. So all application software is written in programming languages. So whether it's a lot of the application software is written in C. Some of them is assembly code, and some of them has a Python. and the Java, like that one. So it's used the programming language, and also OS utility. There gotta be file access units or virus checker, memory managers. All those things are needed. Therefore, that application software is built above or on top of system software. So that relationship goes like that. So you can, all the days that they wrote the application software by just going into machine address and machine operation steps one at a time, all electric voltage and some kind of memory addresses. But that's too much, too tedious, and too error prone. So okay, forget it. Let's make the programmer's life easier by having programming languages, and all you have to do is just using it, using human-like languages. That's what the programming language is all about. So it's built on using those kind of programming language or system software. So these utilities are also, this is part of system software. And each application software has a specific need and a specific task. Of course, some application software is a very large scale and has multiple functions, so many functions that it can be used for various purposes, or some application software where it's used just one small the scope of the functions. So think about this app, as I said before, that when in your smartphone that you are downloading apps, then some apps, for example, is just telling the time, nothing else. All it does is that just telling the time. Or the another app just shows how much memory you have left on your smartphone itself. So very small scale work, or very limited number of functions, or some of them is a very large number of a wide spectrum. Typical desktop computers, the application has a wide the kind of a spectrum of functionality in one application software package. Reason being that you don't want to have too many application software running around in your desktop. That's making a window being too crowded. But smartphone is slightly different, and you have the kind of choose and just have a few things that you want to use it all the time. So this more like those the specific needs in here. There's some application packages are very specialized. That's what I'm saying, and some are broad. And business productive software is a good example of very broad the usage. So we'll talk about that in talking about those Office suite. But for example, Microsoft Word, that has so many functions. Maybe you will say that I'm sure almost all of you have used this Microsoft Word or the Excel. And I use just a very small fraction of it's a function. There are so many things that I see the labels, I see the display, but I don't know what it is doing. I'm just kind of using a small portion of that, but that's okay. You have those parts that you are comfortable with, and plus what you really need that be used. Then. Typically, that software takes a so-called learning curve, because when you first gotten your software, then how to use it, it takes time to learn. So that learning starts from a little hard, but it takes some time to get familiarized it. So that is called the learning curve. Learning curve can be very steep, then like that one, or it may be somewhat slow and achieving it. So total level of difficulty is about this much. So you progress slow bit by bit, or even the small job, you need a lot of things to learn. So the learning curve may be very steep. So that's the role of, or that's the decision of the software engineers who are creating this software. I wouldn't say that every application software follows the software engineering principles. I told about that, talked about this software engineering principles in the third lecture about talking about software, and the engineered software is so important. Just in case that you are curious why it's called engineering, by definition, creating something or making some product using mathematical and some theoretical foundation, then that is called engineering. In other words, that you are making something out of just instinct and intuition and just make it and quick and dirty way, then that's not an engineering. Engineering usually they look ahead and what would be the purpose of it and how would it be used, what is needed. So you go step by step very carefully and you do all the calculation, all the consequences, and you build it with by known methodology, and eventually you create the one product. You do the testing, test, so that make sure it doesn't cause any errors. That's the software engineering principle, and the many the softwares are made using this software engineering principle. Okay. I just made just a small number of categories out of so many, but the category can be business productivity software like word processor, spreadsheet, and the presentation, like what you know, and then database. That's in Microsoft Office suite, and this is known as Access, and this one Word, and this one as Excel, and this the PowerPoint. Then they are talking then another whole bunch of group of categories, that is graphics and multimedia. You see that multimedia, medium is the tool or some kind of a unit of a transmission, so multiple, so not just one. Typical the method of the communication or conveying information is done by text. But if you add image and audio, video, some animation, all those things, then you use the auditory and the visual, the stimuli to understand some subjects. So this is more the kind of helpful in understanding subjects. Then engineering related. Our textbook also talks about CAD/CAM, but I'm not going to go into the detail. CAD/CAM, actually, you may have seen a lot of movie that actually there are a lot of machinery that actually creating some the objects. So it is a machine, and instead of doing by hand, it is done by machine. CAD is a computer aided design. CAM is a computer aided manufacturing. So two goes together. You got to design it and use that one as a manufacturing. Then there's educational software, so learning something and online lessons and tutorials like that. And entertainment related software, so games and movies, music, like that. Then communication related software, there is a web browser and the email, social networking like your Facebook and the TikToks, things like that, and video conferencing like those Zoom and the other teleconferencing, and then malware remover. Malware is a virus. Mal is a bad, and ware is a kind of software. So malware is things like those virus, and the Trojan. You may not have heard of it, but I'll talk about the Trojan horse at the end of the last lecture, or second from the last lecture. So malware, the virus or worm, those kind of things, and the pop-up of your virus, the pop-up advertisement on your screen, those things being removed. Those kind of software is a very important group, and there are a whole bunch. And then, of course, that handheld device apps, what we know about your smartphone apps. So this is a very, very small sample, but more frequently used categories. But in here, I would like to refer to this page of Wikipedia talking about those application software. So just one page is shot as much, but this application suite, enterprise software, and that here is the application platform, information worker software, and here educational software, simulation software, product engineering software, so many categories. So it is a software, the generator or software engineering principles that give us some kind of a classification. I have been teaching software engineering myself for so long, so I can see why they are making this kind of categories. But anyway, just to think about that, there are so many, and there's no need of knowing them all. It's impossible to do that. Nevertheless, that there are rich inventory of softwares over there. Then general rules on the application software. First of all, in terms of a user, that application software, the users are just general public. Some of them are very experienced and highly knowledgeable about the computer system. Some of them is just the novice who just started in this field recently. So there may be quite a bit of a spectrum of different level of expertise or training. But when we are making the software, then we want to make everybody be happy, easy to use. So usability, so-called user friendly. That is the keyword, or this one is too long, so it's a usability. If too tough and the command sets are too difficult and to manipulate, hard to remember how to quickly use it right away, then can't use it, just will give up. So we want to make our software as usable as possible. So it's a usability or user-friendly. And that first step was GUI. So I talked about this GUI thing in the fourth lecture. And I said the GUI is another name for the WIMP. And the WIMP has a Windows icon and a menu and pointing devices. So pointing devices like your mouse or trackball or some kind of a stylus pen, things like that. And the window is just like what you see in a box. So I said that those things are so-called metaphor. Metaphor is a translation of the real world into kind of a cyber world. So the window, of course, you don't see the window in the screen. Screen is a screen, but you simulate the window as if you're looking outside of the window. Then there's icons, that individual unit that gives some kind of imagery that gives you quick reminder of what that's for. So sometimes you don't remember the name of the product, but you remember the picture or that icon, and you can use that on without any trouble, like that one. And then there's a menu. Good thing about the menu is that you don't remember the detail, but if you click the menu, but there are so many options, then if you put that on display, all of them, then that makes your screen or your the visual scope or visual field too big, too complicated. So when you want to have it, just click it and you open it up. It's like you go to the restaurant. If you know exactly what food you want to eat on a certain day, you don't even have to look at the menu. Maybe you may want to look at the menu to see if the price is changed or not. Otherwise, you don't open up a menu if you know what it is you are wanting. But if you go to a new restaurant and a place you've never been, then you want to know what kind of food is there, what kind of new items there. You want to open the menu. If you don't want to look at what it is in there, you don't have to open this idea. And in doing so, that all the days people had to type it or doing a screen touching like that. So we need more of your eye and hand coordination. So this P is a pointing device, I said. So it's more intuitive. You can point it, or this is better yet, there's a touch screen. You know exactly where to touch, and then you get into this right item to select. So it is called X window. Actually, this is old history, but there's a X window standard was established or researched and published by Xerox company. That's why this X, they had this X window. And but you know, Xerox is the copy machine company. They knew that around the 1970s that they were talking about the office automation called OA, meaning that sooner or later there will be no paper on the office job. Everything will be on the computer. So they say, oh, we are a copy machine company, and without those paper copying, then we're going to run out of business. So we got to do something. So they decided to go into this more user-friendly, office workers friend of using computer. Of course, that they were wrong that still the Xerox machine is used to the left and the right, the copying a lot of papers. But anyway, that's how it went. Then usually function key above the number key, those F1, F2 to F12, that is for shortcut. So most of them are shortcuts. So shortcut means that the quick way of going. So instead of typing something, or opening, clicking, but you just by one press, it jumped into certain the work or certain the function to open up. And usually that F1 is used for help. So in case that you need the help, then F1 is usually the one. But who decide that? That's application programmers. The programmers who create application software will decide how to use those function keys. Then escape key is intended for panic button. So if you want to know what to do, sometimes you feel like you're stuck. Then you want to, okay, just please cancel everything, I'll go back. That is what the escape key is all about. Then Apple computer, the Mac line has a slightly different convention, but originally it is coming from X window, but they modified further in their own way. And Microsoft uses at the top line the whole chunk of those choosable units like icons and some menu items and into the ribbon. We'll see in a minute, but there's a thing called the bar. So there's a title bar, menu bar, and icon bar. Like that. Bar usually means a long strip. That is what the bar is all about. But in here they combined that on because the bar become too thick. So they decided to call it a ribbon. That's the case. So in here, that typical form that on the top here, that this line, this top one is usually this application software. Actually, this is for the audio, the editing. This is freeware. This the kind of open source. And it's easy to use, and then you don't have to pay. But anyway, so it's called the WavePad. and in here that this line is called this is a title bar, and then these two lines are the menu bars, and then these are the icon bars. So this whole the long rectangle is called a bar. So here's the title here, and there's a menu here and the icon here, and then bottom here there's a task. What are we doing now? So that's called the task bars, task bar here, and then this is called main area. It's a work area like that. That's a general layout. So looking at the business productivity software, the most widely used type of software is what the business productivity software. I don't think that they have to call this on business or something because it's confusing. So I usually call productivity software. So word processor, desktop, the two, the desktop publishing and the spreadsheets, and then presentation the software. So word processor is like we know just the word, but there's a thing called the writer. Many other software has writers, and that includes the Mac and the WordPad and the Melee. There's actually those things are the freewares, and then desktop publishing. So I'm going to say that there are differences between word processor and desktop process, the publishing. Word processor is just creating a document. Desktop publishing is the kind of making a document that is for the publishing or for the others to look. So a little more elaborated the publication. So publisher that like when you want to make a card or some kind of a poster, that is what the publisher does. This Microsoft and Adobe Illustrator AI and the PageMaker and the Draws. These things, so Adobe is definitely making a lot of those desktop publishing the software, and the Corel Draws and the Pages like that. The spreadsheet. Actually, this spreadsheet was originally the first version of this spreadsheet. The spreadsheets are like that. You spread it out. So it's more like a matrix form and can make it calculation. So it is called VisiCalc. Means a visual calculator. So it's replacing actual calculator you are using in handheld calculator, but instead of that on making into the matrix form. So we call this on the rows and the columns, and individual unit here is called the cell. So each cell can have a text or some numbers or some formula or some other designation. So this spreadsheet is a very kind of a convenient and powerful form of the usage, and in business application that is used because so much calculation can be done here, and even very sophisticated statistics can be done using this Excel. And the old days it was called the Lotus 1, 2, 3 and the calculator or K-spread. So the name usually goes with that kind of function. So doing calculation is on a spreadsheet, you widely display. So best way of arranging the complex information is by making into the table. Then it gets much more compact and very kind of useful. And the presentation is PowerPoint and Impress. That's a Mac version, and the briefing. That the name says that. So it is the idea about a PowerPoint is that you are making the point. That's impressing people. But I always emphasize that the PowerPoint or this the Impress, this kind of thing is some tool of talking. So I'm using PowerPoint, and people just say, oh, as long as I have this PowerPoint pages, that's everything I need. Actually, it is not. The lecture, the person presenter talks with this, and this is just kind of a helper. So, but these days on those online the form of lecture, that the PowerPoint become more important than just what instructor is talking. Database is another whole chunk of a very important the components in the computer usage in business and in science and many other engineering application there, that you need good data. In fact, that there's a good definition about the database that is different from file, but I'm not going to talk about that now. But Microsoft Access, Oracle, MySQL, so there's a structured query language. MongoDB, this one, Mongo has nothing to do with Mongolia, but it's a humongous, it's a large scale database. And Gremlin, OrientDB. Again, this is nothing to do with Oriental or Occidental, but this one is the directional. So from the database, you give some kind of the summarizes. So so-called data mining had in mind. And then the other things goes into the suite. Suite is a big room where there's many different functions all together, or usually into the family. So G Suite is for the Google's way of putting things together. So bundled software is what we are talking about. So hardware, software. Bundling is grouping together. So many hardware software company offers this. Old days, the bundling meant to be software and hardware bundled together. So when you buy a hardware, then they gave corresponding software together. So that's called bundled software. But these days, bundled software usually means that multiple different function, different type of application and system software all grouped together, integrated into one. That's the more or less the name. So suite, as I said, is in a suite there's a whole family. So this is Microsoft Word. And this kit is, say, database, graphics, and then the Excel, like that one. That kind of multiple function working together. That's the idea. And many other companies. So there are a whole bunch of this. And many of these suites are actually free version. I'm going to talk about that free version at the end. Then word processor and desktop publishing, there are two categories that most frequently used. So word processor main function includes this, the creating, editing, sharing some writings, and then inserting some this kind of thing, and spelling checks. Those things are very much of a basic writing thing. So beautifying is not the main purpose. On the other hand, desktop publishing is more elaborated, more beautified, more impressive the publication. So intended for book or company newsletter, poster, and promotion materials like that, and they become more artistic and attractive design and writing. So it is a lot of graphics, a lot of color combination, and the visual effects like that one. So here are some list of the word processors, like the Pages and document tool. This is tool, it sounds like tool. And the King software. King software is a freeware, and Melee, and then popular desktop publishing. We already had before, but these are some of the names. So if you look at that, these are the Wikipedia pages, then you will see some more detail of this software. And this is an example of, I just did random idea about this is what the desktop publishing is. The components are. So it's designed for those layouts of different sections like a newsletter and some of those posters or some the sales of the brochure and or the web design and this kind of some kind of a book or some kind of a publication layouts. Those things are called desktop publishing. It's really like making a shareable, publicly shareable material of some the contents and some the advertisement. Then there goes a multimedia. So multimedia usually comes into image part and audio part and the video parts like that one. So I don't have much time to talk about it, but here pictures, they are worth 1,000 words. So pictures are always useful. When you put a picture, then that gives a better understanding. And then there are many, actually there are hundreds of different formats of those images. So most common is a JPEG. That's a joint photographers expert group. The photographers group, they had some association and they proposed a certain format. Good thing about JPEG is that it is reducing the file size most drastically. So the file size for the picture, the file size is the smallest possible. Unfortunately, this one is not reversible. So it's a so-called lossy. There's lossless and the lossy compression is a lossy. So when you shrink your JPEG into smaller resolution and try to blow up, then it look just horrible. It's terrible like that because all the details are lost. Actually, they're using cosine functions for that. And the GIF is it is more of an animation that can be given, graphical information format. Then TIFF and then PDF. Those things are the image file. Just a few examples. So if you click this this website, then you will see that you have what kind of the image file extension there is. Do you have to know it? Not really, but it's when you're curious, then maybe you can check on it. And the images are generated in two different methods. One is vector and raster. This is what the subject of computer graphics. When I was teaching computer graphics, then I talked in detail. But the reason I'm mentioning is our textbook talks about vector and raster. I'm going to talk about vector and raster in next section. But vector is by drawing lines, so it's a smoother. So if I got the certain kind of proportion, then it goes a very small lines go into, and you draw it and filling it and so draw the line like that. On the other hand, the raster is that you begin with the whole the memory and it's a dots. So you just put the dots. So the raster graphics is definitely the less clear. So vector graphics is much clear and the accurate line. On the other hand, this one get the blurred and when high magnification doesn't look so good, but it is much more feasible to do the graphics programming. So more widely used is the raster. I'll talk about that. Raster means it's a line by line. That's what it means. And why bother with it? Well, I'll talk about that. Then raster, they generate image on pixel map, on frame buffer, whatever that means. And the most popular this one. PNG, in case you have used that, PNG doesn't have any background. It has only image part, and the other part that looks a little bit wiggly. But when put on top of other image, then it does not give any other impression. So much cleaner the cut and paste type of image you can make. So when you are doing web programming, that rather than JPEG, that they ask that be given in PNG. And then vector is that containing instruction to draw the line on the screen. So it's more accurate and more clear and the accurate looking. So PDF, EPS, and AI, that kind of, it is added in the Illustrator format. So just looking at that, and this one, vector graphics is just a drawing line, very short line. So that when you look in a blow up, they look like this angled, or there's a little corner like that. But if this is a high resolution, then this little bit of this corner looks all, they gone away. So this is a vector. Vector is compare this one and this one. I don't know whether you agree, but vector looks a little much more clear and sharper. On the other hand, then raster is just the dots like that. So same letter E, but if it's a vector graphics, is so the accurate and clear at the looking the lines, very solid looking lines. In here, there's a little blurry. That's called the jagged, or sometimes called the anti-aliased. That's what the graphic people do, so don't worry about that name. But anti-aliased. Then audio file is things that goes more like this wave, the sine wave, cosine waves into some digitizing form. So sorry that I should have removed this one. So there are a whole bunch of file formats, and then there are the editing software, that is the Audition, Audacity, Apple Logic, those kind of the application software that allow, that will give you editing the audio file. This is useful when you are creating some kind of, especially websites, and you create your own contents. Then video file, again, is that the very popular these days. It gets more affordable because of those YouTube or those online video uploading utility, and the TV and the YouTube, there's things are available. And then these days, that old days, there were limitation about for those video to upload into YouTube, or some of this the contents, the UCC is called user created contents, that site that has a limited time, limited resolution, but these days it's almost infinity, because the file can be compressed and gets much more efficient to the store large size of the data. So anyway, MP4 is most common one, and the WebM and OGG, and this one is a Windows form, and MOV and FLV. Those things are used a lot. So these are the popular the format. And each format needs some kind of a thing called the codec. That's a coder, decoder. That's a coder, decoder. That's what it short for. So you hear about you need a the codec. That means you got to, sound is originally analog signal. It's things wavelengths like that. But you got to digitize that one into numbers, 3, 5, 7, 1 like that one. So there got to be certain conventions. So you got to code into the number, and that is what is stored in the, like your CD or your wave file like that. And when it is being played back, you need translated back into the sound wave. That's a decoder. Then presentation graphics, sometimes called the business graphics, and the charts and diagram used in the presentation. Of course, that the MS PowerPoint, and it is used in the classrooms, briefing room, conferences, like that. Very successful model. So usually it is given a name of graphics, because even if it is a lot of texts here, but the purpose is that show some visual cue and sometimes audio. You can insert some sound in here, so, and the video here, so you can give more help in understanding. Then business-related software-wise, then there's the volume of data and requirement for the accuracy. Business community uses many software. Actually, you as a business major will need so many software. Of course, there's an accounting and the CRM, that's customer relationship manager. So customer service and the tracking, and the enterprise resources, the ERP, so planning and monitoring business operation, and the trading and human resources management. And this is something new maybe, but the blockchain these days they're talking about, this blockchain is a new field. So there are a lot of programs. These things are already open for general public. So the blockchain related software. But at least that you have a ERP, CRM that you will hear a lot. And of course that accounting wise, ledger and home banking, tax reporting, those kind of utilities. Then there are a whole bunch of online courses that I'm just putting on just a list of them on and with our websites. MOOCs, that is massive open online courses, that's called MOOCs. And then Coursera is very famous, Open University. Originally they started from Britain, but now it is all over the world. And Udemy. So you go to the iou.edu, then you will see there's a whole lot of location. And Udemy and Udacity and edX, that is this website here. Once you go there, then sometimes some courses require register and paying some money, but in general, most of courses are free. Coursera is especially very wide variety of courses. So courses, the Coursera org, then it gives, and there's some the formula like a data science business has 1,095 different courses, computer science and health. There's more that can be given. And then there's OSS. So open source software, I said, is that it is going free. So, this one is copyright, right? This copyright symbol, but they have a thing called the copyleft. So this is just kind of tongue-in-cheek. So the history goes that there's two men, Eric Raymond and Prince. They decided, oh, the software is too expensive and too poor quality. So let us give away about we create the software, open up all the source code, and let anybody who are interested take it and use it. But one condition: why don't you use it? And if you feel like you see improve it, then go ahead and share it. That's the idea. So it's more like making community, helping each other. So they founded Open Source Institute, and as of 2001, over 1 million OSS products around, and you can find almost everything. And then it's a $60 billion annually that is used. They are saving. So especially in the third country, suppose, for example, that people buy many computers and install all the Windows. Then each window you supposed to pay unless you got the group license. So without that, it is illegal. And Microsoft, the Office suite, that is again illegal to copy it, but they do it. So instead of doing that, let's do the open source. That's the idea. So there's a thing called GPL. In other words, many people may say that well, if it's free, then it's a poor quality, isn't it? And the in an English expression that you pay, I mean, you get what you pay for. So if you pay nothing, then you are the quality of the thing you are getting is really nothing. That's very poor. So they have a thing called the GPL licensing. That's a GNU public license. So, well, GNU is not Unix. So this guy's having a kind of joke, but so they have a public licenses. So they have a committee, examining and reviewing all the software, examining all the detail, and say, oh, this is good quality. We guarantee that there's no error, done good testing and the good organization, good software engineering principle used in creating this, then we can approve it. So if any open source software then with a GPL certificate, the GPL here, then you can safely use them. So there this is the full list of the free list. And then you got very many numbers. There are so many that it goes. You got to go to different link to the different categories. Then the guy GPL license was originally thought of and ran by a guy named the Richard Stallman. This guy, and he is more of a pioneer in this field. And there are many examples, very good. So system software, programming language, all those well-known ones, also free. Word processor-wise, these things, they are all good. Actually, I suggest to you just to look at LibreOffice. This LibreOffice is pretty much very compatible to Microsoft Word and very well done. I have been using it a lot under the Unix. When I was in Mongolia, that we were using strictly on that, and a lot of CAD/CAM and the browsers and image animation editors. GIMP is a very good one. It's a little hard to learn, but it is very useful. And the game playing, and then so on. So there are practically every field that you can get the right kind of the OSS software. That when I was in Mongolia in that university, there was a new institute called Open Source Institute. That's I was a director, and we collected all the information, categorized and educating like that one. So that's pretty much useful in that without buying software, we use these open sources. So in the future, just that you bear in mind that, okay, there's something called FOSS, and I would like to see if the software I wanted is in here or not. There are a lot of business already applications there. So conclusion, we already our past application software is a workhorse of contemporary computerized operation. And there are many large numbers of and practically every field of application there are such software, and the proper selection of software is important. And if you start learning something that's not so good, then you will waste a lot of your time. Then the modern trend is that free and open source software called the FOSS enable the quality software without a heavy cost or without any cost. And if you are using proprietary software, that is something that they are charging, make sure you got to pay, because creating software is a so hard job. It takes so much effort, so much time, and so much of the patience. So, and then people are making their living by just writing software, so they must have their own bread. So just pay due amounts. Okay, so I'm sorry that it's a little over 1 hour, but this one, hopefully that you got overview of those application software. Still, I touched a very small part, but nevertheless, application software is so important. Okay, thanks a lot.